Broadcasting from New York City to the world, it's the G-Man Interviews.
Welcome. In the previous episode, actor and director Michael Green discussed his acclaimed play, Whistle in Mississippi, The Lynching of Emmett Till, the circumstances surrounding the brutal murder, and the men who were acquitted in the case, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam. Mr. Green also proclaimed that he believed something positive took place in the story between Emmett Till and Carolyn Bryant, the woman that Till whistled at, and a woman who has remained silent and in seclusion for the last several decades. According to my special guest, Mr. Green is absolutely correct in his assessment. Scott Sheard was a member of the Ku Klux Klan and served as Imperial Wizard, Grand Wizard, and the national leader of the Omerta Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. His other affiliations included the National Association for the Advancement of White People and the European American Unity Rights Organization. Sheard created the National White Rights Association and the White Rights Organization. The Mississippi native, who frequently appears in my ongoing series Racism and Rage in America, has known and interacted with members of the Bryant family since he was a child. Over the last 30 years, Sheard, his father, extended family members, and members of the Indianola community have privately discussed the Till murder and the role Carolyn Bryant may have played. Now, nearly 60 years after the murder, trial, and acquittal, Scott Sheard is going to reveal what he describes as a crucial element that should have been considered when the federal government attempted to file charges against Carolyn Bryant. According to the former Klansman and members of his family, it was something that was common knowledge throughout the Indianola community. It's a pleasure to welcome you back to the show, Mr. Sheard.
I'm glad to be back. Always a privilege.
Carolyn Bryant Dunham is from Indianola, Mississippi, which is where you were born and raised. How did your family become acquainted with the Bryants?
My family became acquainted with the Bryants because, of course, like I said, my family has a long history of being from Indianola. Carolyn Bryant's family, her entire family is from Indianola, and being a small town, we were able to, of course, interact.
At what age did you begin interacting with the family and with whom?
I started interacting with the family, actually, when I was in kindergarten, and the family member that I interacted with was Carolyn Bryant's nephew. Bob is his name. I don't want to give his last name. The reason why, because the family is not a racist family. And, of course, this is really a touchy subject, and I think I told you that, it's a hard subject to talk about, being that I'm so close to the family, because I do not want to, get this family into a situation where they're looked at as racist because they're not, because of what Carolyn Bryant was involved with in her family.
With regard to the family members you met as you got older, did they have ties to the Ku Klux Klan?
No. Like I said, I was associated with the nephew of Carolyn Bryant's. We went to kindergarten together and grew up together, and actually we're still friends today, best of friends. I talk to him on a regular basis. Bob has a brother that's an older brother that's older than him and myself. It was just a well-known family in the city in the town, and they just were not a racist family and not involved with the Ku Klux Klan at all.
Did Carolyn Bryant ever have any affiliation with the Klan?
She was married to Roy Bryant, and Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, they were half-brothers, and, of course, lived around Money, Mississippi, and I don't think that Carolyn Bryant was involved with any kind of racial organization, and I don't know that Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam were. They were just products of that situation and held, racist views.
You informed me that you interacted with her then-husband, Roy Bryant, on a few occasions. How so?
My dad knew Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, and later in years, of course, what took place, I was not even a sparkle in my dad or mom's eye at that time. I was born in 1959, and then, of course, in later years, I became came in contact with Roy Bryant, because Roy Bryant in his latter years retired, was selling fruit and vegetables and things like that in a small town around Louisville, Mississippi. And then, I'd stop and would buy things from him and wanted to talk to him, because at that time I was in, the mindset I was in, oh, Roy Bryant and them were kind of a hero because of what they had done.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? You consider them heroes for what they had done?
Well, I looked up to them because, and I'm not, and being honest, I looked up to them because they, not because of what they had done, that they had gotten away with something. And, in my mind, I would look at anyone who got away with, a crime as a racist or against someone of color.
What can you share about Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam that has not been mentioned in history books, magazines, or news reports?
Don't know a whole lot about J.W. Milam, but I do know that Roy Bryant was, and it's kind of hard to say anything about Roy Bryant that already hasn't been reported. But I can say, yes, he did brag about killing Emmett Till. This was pretty much pretty much common knowledge that they did do this, do that terrible crime, and had talked about it and admitted it.
Did Carolyn Bryant ever share details about the murder with anyone in your family?
She took really a back seat to the issue, and I think after, Carolyn Bryant was, and I'll say this, Carolyn Bryant was a lady that, they say was a gorgeous lady at that time. And I think was maybe a beauty queen and some beauty contests at that time. And, what Emmett Till did, I think was probably something any 14-year-old kid would do. I know myself, I would have whistled at her. But no, she didn't, say anything that, about the crime, but she was, like I said, it was knowledge that she knew about it and was hiding a lot of things. Emmett Till, was a 14-year-old young boy. And myself, I can look at myself and see where at 14 years old, I would have done the same thing Emmett Till did. Your hormones are racing, and you're starting to look at women at a different, or girls at a different perspective. The only difference is between myself and Emmett Till is Emmett Till was black. He was from Chicago. Here, I was from Mississippi. That's the only difference, and that's why he was targeted and eventually murdered, because he was black and from Chicago. If it had been myself, nothing would have happened. I mean, I would not have been murdered, attacked, or anything like that. That is why Emmett Till specifically was targeted and murdered, because he was black and whistled at a white woman.
You told me your father had some very strong words regarding not only the murder, but the character of Carolyn Bryant. What did he tell you and other members of your family about her and the case?
My parents were not racist whatsoever. My dad knew Roy Bryant, J.W. Milam, and knew Carolyn Bryant also, and my mother also knew Carolyn Bryant. Not only did I hear this from my dad, and not only did my dad tell me this, my mother told me also that Carolyn Bryant had a habit of, wearing short shorts in and around that town and in that store, and had a bad habit of flirting with young kids and young boys and just about anybody that came into the store. And that's why I said, as a 14-year-old, I can see where I would have done the same thing Emmett Till did.
Now, when you say she was accustomed to flirting with young boys who came into the store, did this also include black boys?
Yes. Pretty common knowledge that yes, she did do this. And not just from my family, other people that I talked to about the case that knew her, yes, it was, pretty common. This is something that she did.
So based on what you've been told over the years by your family members and other people within the community, including those within the Klan community, it's your contention that Carolyn Bryant may have acted as a temptress on that day in the store when she had that encounter with Emmett Till.
Exactly. And that is, like I said, that's not just myself. I've been told this by many, many, many people in the community. That was, pretty much her, a habit of hers. That's something she did.
Is it true that her sister served as a judge in the state of Mississippi during the 90s? And if so, Do you know if she served in Leflore County?
Actually, it was probably in the 90s. I'm trying to think. 80s. I'd say more so in the 90s. Yes, she served as a judge there in Indianola.
Is Indianola located in Leflore County?
Of course, Emmett Till was murdered and thrown into the Tallahatchie River, and I think part of the Tallahatchie River falls into Leflore County, and it may end up into Tallahatchie County also. But no, that was Indianola is Sunflower County, totally a separate county.
The reason why I raised that question is because in 2007, a Leflore County grand jury decided not to indict Carolyn Bryant Dunham in the wake of a prolonged FBI investigation. An Associated Press article, which was published in March of that year, stated the following. Even as the U.S. Department of Justice was announcing a fresh look at unsolved civil rights era killings around the South, a Mississippi Delta prosecutor was closing the books on perhaps the most notorious of those cold cases, the brutal 1955 murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till. To some, the Leflore County grand jury's decision not to return an indictment in the case following an exhaustive 3-year federal investigation was a sign that not much has changed in Mississippi in the last 52 years. I suspect some people will listen to this interview and say, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam are dead. And if Carolyn Bryant did play a crucial role in the murder of Emmett Till, she's 80 years old and there's no point in trying to convict her. Ultimately, she'll have to answer to God. Now, I'm sure you consider this. So why did you decide now would be a good time to tell the world about your relationship with the Bryant family and the other side of Carolyn Bryant Dunham?
Well, the other side of Carolyn Bryant, of course, Dunham. Be honest with you, this is actually the first time I've ever, I've had a chance to really speak out against the case. And like you said, people have refused to, prosecute this case or even want to open the case to, get an indictment against Carolyn Bryant. I've always considered the case a closed case because of the situation that you just described. No one wants to open this case back up. Leflore County is probably a county that this does not surprise me because this is the county that Bryant and J.W. came from and was a prominent figure in Leflore County and Greenwood, Mississippi. And of course, Bryant and J.W. was convicted of killing Medgar Evers some 30 years later. And this is something that really doesn't surprise me, but, they did get Bryant and J.W. in another county in Jackson with a different, different county, yes. So it doesn't surprise me on the situation and the denial of them to try to get a conviction in Leflore County.
You said it was common knowledge among Klan members and members of the Indianola community that Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam got away with murder and that Carolyn Bryant was somehow involved. Do you believe it's only a matter of time before someone comes forward and provides incriminating information to Mississippi officials or the Justice Department so Mamie Till Mobley and her son can finally rest in peace?
I would hope so, but, of course, this was not just common knowledge with members of the Ku Klux Klan. This was common knowledge with people in general and people in the community and people in the state. It was common knowledge that Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam got away with murder, and I guess people consider it a closed case because they were tried and found not guilty. Actually, it would take, I think, a federal court and a federal judge to open this case up and try Carolyn Bryant in a federal court. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think you're going to find a court or jury in the state of Mississippi that wants to touch it or shove it under a rug and forget about it. That's the easiest thing to do because, it does bring up the negative image that Mississippi has, and rightly so, that they were a racist state. And not just Emmett Till, there was a lot of cases that were not prosecuted, and also they were not found guilty of other crimes. So I think, yes, it would take a federal court and a federal judge to do this, and I think the Justice Department is just going to have to do it. I don't think there's going to be anybody that come forward to supply information.
And if the Justice Department decided to file new charges, Would they be likely to file these charges based on claims that Carolyn Bryant violated Emmett Till's civil rights?
Exactly. I would think it would take that. I don't know if you would get murder charges against Carolyn Bryant. They did against Bryant and J.W, but you had a gung ho prosecutor in the state of Mississippi down in Jackson, Bobby DeLauder, who is now a friend of mine that worked with the Medgar Evers family, and said, yes, we're going to go after him and go after an indictment and go after another trial. I don't think you're going to find that with the Carolyn Bryant family, because there's not really there's not really anyone to come forward with information, because this was such a situation where they came in the middle of the night and got Emmett Till and took him out and killed him. I mean, the only people that have knowledge of actually what went on in this case was Emmett Till's family and Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam and Carolyn Bryant. Everyone's passed away, and of course the sentiment, and people knew that they actually got away with murder, and yes they did, and the jury found them not guilty. If it's going to take a federal court and a federal judge to do that, and I hope it takes, and I'll be honest with you, I hope it happens. They need to get a federal judge and a indictment that would get her back in court to do this. And it's such a touchy situation. You will not get a court in Mississippi to do it, I don't believe, because they don't want to open up bad wounds and open up an old sore.
You said the Mississippi courts would be reluctant to open an old sore, but many in the state and across the country would argue that sore has never healed. And the proof is in the fact that many blacks and whites in the state of Mississippi are still deeply divided over and impacted by the murder.
Well, yeah, that's true. And you said it better than you said it better than myself. It would, the wound is never healed. The wound has got a scab over it. And I guess that's a better way of putting it. They don't want to pull the scab off of something that's really never healed because of the reputation Mississippi has. And there would be, a black eye into the, for the state of Mississippi. It would take a prosecutor like Bobby DeLauder, who had the guts to stand up and say, we are going to go after Carolyn Bryant. And this is what he did, with potentially was a downfall to him, because he was later convicted and spent time in prison. And I'm one to say I think that was a politically motivated thing for what he did with Bryant and J.W. But it would take a prosecutor to go after Carolyn Bryant, not worrying about any kind of repercussions. And whether you got that in the state of Mississippi now, after Bobby DeLauder is no longer a prosecutor, I don't know if you have one like him or not in the state of Mississippi now. I really don't.
You're still extremely close with members of the Bryant family. Do you suspect that will change as a result of this interview?
It possibly could. I think I sent you a message that said, this situation or this case has really been one that, and I'll be honest with you, it's a hard one, or this issue, because of the close relationship that I have with the Bryant family, and my family has always been close to her family, and it's a hard one, but what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And the murder of Emmett Till was dead wrong. And if it cost me a friendship with her family, then so be it. That's just the way it has to be. But I can't hold back the feelings that I have and the things that I know went on and the facts of this, worrying about a friendship. And this case has not been solved. Well, it's been solved in the sense that everybody knows they got away with murder, but it actually has not been solved because nobody's been convicted and thrown in prison for it. And in order to give the Emmett Till family some healing and some sense of closure, that's what is going to have to, happen. And unfortunately, it hasn't yet. And if it costs me a friendship with that family, well, so be it. I'm speaking out on a situation that I feel strongly about because it was wrong.
Having said all that, if Mississippi state officials or representatives from the Justice Department wanted to question you or ask you to provide a statement pertaining to Carolyn Bryant's character and or history, would you be willing to comply?
Sure, yes, it would still be in the back of my mind. This is going to maybe cause a friction or a loss of a friendship that I've had from kindergarten. But sure, I'd definitely speak with them and do anything I could that would help this case, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And again, that was dead wrong. And I'm a different person than what I was years ago. I wouldn't have talked to the Justice Department or anyone about this case. I just kept my mouth shut. But now, sure, you better believe it.
In a previous interview, I asked you what you would be willing to do to prove you changed and no longer support the Ku Klux Klan or other white supremacist organizations. Are you sharing these revelations in order to prove you're not the man you were decades ago?
That's a question that I have to answer it with two answers. Like you said, like you asked, what would I be willing to do? I think I'm doing that now by speaking out. I've been speaking out openly and publicly for a good while now, and people are seeing this. I've taken slack, and I have lost friends, and I have gotten threats for it, but that's okay. The question you ask, yes, it's a two-sided answer. I would definitely speak out, and that would be my way of showing that, I have truly changed. But at the same time, that would not really be my number one goal. My number one goal would be justice and closure for the Emmett Till family. That's one way of showing that I'd changed, but it's not the only reason. The other reason would be the Till family needs closure, and there needs to be justice.
Mr. Shepherd, thank you for sharing this information and providing us with a personal assessment of the woman that has lived in seclusion and remained silent for nearly 60 years.
I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak out on this issue, and I think it's an important issue because of the Till family. They have no answers. They have no one to turn to, and they have no one really helping them get closure. And it's going to take people speaking out, not just myself. It's going to take more than myself. It's going to take a lot of people to speak out and get this case reopened and people prosecuted for the wrong that was done.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I launched this show back in 2013, my objective was to make a difference through quality journalism while adhering to its best standards and practices. That hasn't changed. And I strive to ensure that all sides are presented so that you can debate the issues or draw your own conclusions on the subjects that are presented. That said, I'm publicly extending an invitation for Carolyn Bryant Dunham, or members of her immediate family, to appear on this show to respond to the statements provided by Mr. Shepherd. 59 years is an extremely long time to live and suffer in silence, Miss Dunham. And if you would like an opportunity to explain to the world exactly what happened in this store on that fateful day, or to reveal any regrets you may have about the murder of Emmett Till and the impact it's had on race relations in this country, you and your family have an open invitation. I'm the G-Man, and I thank you for joining me. Until next time, stay cool, stay safe, and stay informed.